Brenda was cleaning the floor when the city's most feared CEO knelt before her. "Marry me, and I'll give you 10 million. She thought it was a cruel joke. What he revealed next turned her world upside down forever. Before we start today's story, tell me where you're watching from, grab a coffee or settle onto the couch, and please don't forget to support us. Just click like this and I'll know you enjoy this type of story. Ready? Let's begin. It was a typical Tuesday when Brenda's life changed forever. The clock struck 6 in the morning, and she was already on the 30th floor of the city's most imposing corporate building, pushing her cleaning cart through the empty hallways. At 45, with her graying hair always pulled back in a simple bun, and the blue uniform she'd worn for 5 years, she had grown accustomed to being invisible. "Good morning, Ms. Brenda." The security guard at the entrance greeted her, as he did every day. "Good morning, Franken," she replied with a genuine smile. He was one of the few people who called her by name in that place. As she wiped the gleaming marble floor, Brenda looked out through the enormous glass windows at the city awakening below. Cars began to fill the avenues, people rushed to work, and she wondered what it would be like to have a different life. Not that she complained, she was proud of her honest work. She supported herself and still managed to send a little money to her sister in the countryside. The sound of the elevator interrupted her. It was strange for anyone to arrive so early. Through the glass elevator door, she saw the silhouette of a tall man in an impeccable suit. Her heart quickened when she recognized him, Michael Thompson, the company's CEO. She sometimes saw him from afar, always surrounded by executives talking on the phone or rushing through the corridors. "Shoot," she muttered softly, trying to make herself even more invisible behind her cart. She knew the big shots didn't like seeing cleaning staff during business hours, even if she had been there since before dawn. But something unexpected happened. Instead of walking past, as he always did, he stopped right in front of her. Brenda hesitantly looked up and found herself facing a man of about 40, with dark hair combed back and grey eyes that seemed to carry a weight she couldn't decipher. He was known for his intimidating demeanor. But at that moment, there was something different in his expression. "Excuse me," he said, his voice softer than she had imagined. "You're Brenda, aren't you?" She nearly dropped her bucket of water in surprise. Yes, sir. I'm sorry if I'm in the way. I was just finishing." "No, you're not in the way at all," he interrupted, running a hand through his hair in a gesture that revealed nervousness. "Actually, I need to speak with you." Brenda blinked several times, thinking she was dreaming. "With me, sir?" "Yes. Could you come to my office? It's important." Her heart pounded. 1,000 thoughts raced through her mind. Had she done something wrong? Perhaps she had broken something without realizing it. Or worse, maybe she was being fired. Her legs trembling, she dropped the cloth and followed him down the corridors. His office was larger than the apartment she lived in. Enormous windows offered a panoramic view of the city, and the walls were decorated with expensive paintings and framed diplomas. He gestured toward a leather armchair in front of his desk. "Please, sit down." "Sir, my uniform is dirty. I might stain." "Don't worry about it. Please, sit." Brenda obeyed, her hands clammy as he settled behind the desk. For a few seconds, they sat in silence. She noticed he seemed to be struggling to find the right words. "Brenda," he began, taking a deep breath, "what I'm about to propose might seem crazy, but I ask that you hear me out." She nodded, unable to speak. "I need you to marry me." The world stopped. Brenda was certain she hadn't heard correctly. "Sir?" "I know how that sounds," he continued quickly, "but it's not what you're thinking. It's an arrangement, a contract. And in return, I'm willing to offer you a sum that will change your life forever." The words echoed in her mind, as if from very far away. Marriage? Contract? What kind of surreal situation was this? Brenda remained silent for so long that Michael began to shift uncomfortably in his chair. The expression on her face was one of pure shock, as if he had just spoken in a foreign language. "Mr. Thompson," she finally managed to articulate, I don't understand. Are you asking me to marry you?" "It's more complicated than that," he replied, getting up and walking to the window. "I'll be direct with you, Brenda. I need a wife for legal reasons. It's temporary, a year at most. But why? Why me?" Her voice came out weaker than a whisper. Michael turned to face her. There was something in his eyes she couldn't identify, a mix of desperation and determination. "Because you're honest," he said simply. "In 5 years working here, there's never been a single complaint about you. You've never taken so much as a paperclip that wasn't yours. And because," he hesitated, "because I need someone I can trust, someone who doesn't have ulterior motives." Brenda shook her head, still trying to process it all. "Sir, I don't understand anything about the business world, about corporations. I wouldn't even know how to behave." "You don't need to know," he interrupted her. "It would just be on paper. You would continue living your life normally except," he paused, "except with $10 million in your bank account." Her eyes widened. 10 million. 10 million. Half now, half when the marriage ends. Brenda felt her legs go weak. $10 million was more money than she could earn in several lifetimes. With that amount, she could help her sister, buy a house, maybe even realize her old dream of opening a small bakery. "But why don't you look for a woman from your social class?" she asked, genuinely curious. "There must be many interested." His face hardened. "Precisely. All the women in my circle are interested in my money, my position. I want someone who will sign the contract, fulfill the agreement, and then move on with their life. Simple as that." "And what exactly would I have to do?" "Appear at a few events with me, perhaps 2 or 3 times at most. Sign some papers, wear a wedding ring." He sat back down. "Brenda, I know it sounds strange, but I'm being completely honest with you. It's a business transaction, nothing more." She looked at her own calloused hands, then at the luxurious surroundings. The whole situation felt like a dream or a nightmare. She wasn't quite sure yet. "May I ask why you need to get married, if it's not too indiscreet?" Michael was quiet for a long moment, as if deciding how much he could reveal. "Inheritance matters," he said finally. "My father left very specific clauses in his will. I need to be married to maintain control of the company." It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either. Michael couldn't tell her about the diagnosis he had received 2 weeks ago. Aggressive cancer, only a few months to live. The inheritance issue was real, but there was more. He needed to ensure that when he was gone, his empire wouldn't fall into the wrong hands. "And if I accept," Brenda said slowly, "what would happen to my life? My job?" "You can continue working if you wish, though with 5 million in your account, I imagine you won't need to. Or you can take a leave of absence, travel, do what you've always wanted to do." Brenda thought of her sister, who struggled to support her family in the countryside. She thought of the dreams she had put away for so many years. She thought of what it would be like to never have to worry about money again. "I need time to think," she said, her voice firmer now. "Of course, but Brenda..." He looked her directly in the eyes. "I need an answer by tomorrow." She nodded and stood up, still trembling slightly. "May I go now?" "You may. And Brenda, keep this between us for now." As she left the office, Michael wondered if he had done the right thing, but he had no choice. Time was running out, and she was his only hope of keeping everything he had built away from the grasp of his greedy family. Brenda spent the rest of the day like a ghost. She finished her cleaning automatically, barely paying attention to what she was doing. Michael's words echoed in her mind. $10 million. It was such an absurd amount that it seemed unreal. Back in her small one-bedroom apartment on the east side of the city, she sat on the bed and stared at her old cell phone. She desperately wanted to call her sister Lucy, but how would she explain such a surreal situation? "Hi, Lou. The CEO of the company where I work asked me to marry him for $10 million. It would sound like she had gone crazy. She made herself some chamomile tea and sat at the kitchen table, where she usually balanced her monthly budget. There were a few overdue bills, the rent that always ate up half her paycheck, and the money she sent religiously to help Lucy with her children. 10 million would change not just her life, but her entire family's. But marriage? Even if it was just on paper, the word carried a weight she couldn't ignore. At 45, she had never been married. She'd had a few relationships in the past, but nothing that lasted. She had always been seen as the friend, never as the desirable woman, and now, ironically, one of the city's richest men was proposing marriage. She picked up a paper and pen and began to make a list of pros and cons, as she always did when she needed to make important decisions. Pros: enough money to change her life, help her family, realize old dreams. It was just a contract. No emotional involvement. Cons: what if it was a trick? What if he was lying? What if there were unforeseen consequences? As she wrote, she remembered how Michael had addressed her, respectfully, without the arrogance she expected. There was something in his eyes, a deep sadness that she recognized. After all, she had carried a similar one for years. The next morning, she arrived at work earlier than usual. The building was empty, but she knew he always arrived early too. At 7 o'clock sharp, she heard the elevator and saw Michael stepping out. This time, she didn't hide. "Mr. Thompson," she said, approaching him, "may I speak with you?" He stopped immediately. "Of course. My office." Minutes later, they were face to face again. Brenda noticed he looked more tired, with deep circles around his grey eyes. "I've made my decision," she said, surprising herself with the firmness in her own voice. Michael leaned forward, tense. "And? I accept, but I have some conditions." He raised his eyebrows, clearly not expecting this. "Go ahead. First, I want everything in writing, in a contract. Second, no physical intimacy. Third, if something goes wrong, if for any reason you want to cancel the agreement, I keep what I've already received." "I agree to everything," he said quickly. "And I want to know the real reason," she continued. "I don't buy this inheritance story. A man like you doesn't need a simple working woman to solve inheritance issues." Michael was silent for a long moment. She saw an internal struggle unfolding in his expression. It's complicated," he said finally. "I have time," Brenda replied, crossing her arms. He sighed deeply, as if carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. "Brenda, what I'm about to tell you cannot leave this room. It's something even my lawyers don't know yet." She nodded. "I'm sick, very sick." The words came out slowly, as if each one cost him immense effort. "The doctors have given me a few months, and I need to ensure that when I'm gone, my empire doesn't fall into the hands of my family." The air seemed to escape Brenda's lungs. Suddenly everything made sense. The urgency, the choice of someone outside his circle, the exorbitant amount. "That's why you need a wife," she murmured. "I need someone I trust to inherit everything and then do what we deem best. My family only wants the money. You..." He looked her in the eyes. "You have a heart." Brenda felt a tightness in her chest she couldn't explain. The silence that followed was charged with emotion. Brenda looked at Michael with completely different eyes. She no longer saw the arrogant, distant CEO everyone knew. She saw a frightened, lonely man facing his own mortality. "Why did you tell me this?" she asked, her voice choked. "Because you asked. And because..." He hesitated. "Because I need someone to know the truth. I'm tired of carrying this alone." Brenda felt tears burning in her eyes. And your family? They don't know. Michael gave a bitter laugh. My family only shows up when they need money. My younger brother already tried to convince me to lend him $500,000 for one of his businesses. My sister-in-law keeps making insinuations about inheritances. If they knew about the diagnosis, it would be a circus. And friends. Friends? He shook his head. In my world, Brenda, it's hard to tell who are friends and who are just interested parties. I built this empire, but in the process I also built walls around myself. Brenda absorbed all of it. She realized that despite all the social and financial differences between them, they shared something in common: loneliness. How many months did the doctors say? Between 4 and 6, if I'm lucky. She closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, her decision was made. Then let's do this right. What do you mean? If we're going to get married, even if it's just on paper, let's make these months meaningful. I don't just want to sign papers and appear at events. I want you to have someone you can talk to, someone who genuinely cares. Michael looked at her in surprise. Brenda, you don't have to. Yes, I do, she interrupted him. No one should face this alone. And She took a deep breath. I know what it's like to feel invisible. Maybe we can help each other. For a few minutes they looked at each other in silence. It was as if an invisible barrier had been broken between them. Are you sure about this? He asked. It won't be easy. There will be comments, gossip, people won't understand. Let people talk, Brenda said, surprising herself with her own courage. They always have. The difference is now I'll have enough money not to care. Michael smiled for the first time since they started talking, a genuine smile that completely transformed his face. Then we have a deal, he said, extending his hand. When their hands met, Brenda felt a strange sensation that her life was taking a completely unexpected turn. It wasn't just the money, it was something deeper, a human connection she didn't expect to find. One last thing, she said. I want to keep working, at least for now. I don't want people to think I became a lady of leisure overnight. As you wish. But Brenda, and he became serious again. From now on, you are no longer just the cleaning lady. You are. You will be my wife, even if temporarily. That means you have a voice in decisions. You have the right to an opinion. You have the right to be respected. For the first time in a long time, Brenda felt seen, truly seen as a person of worth. When do we start? She asked. Today. I'll call my lawyer to prepare the papers, and we'll need to buy a ring, some clothes for you. He stopped. Sorry, I didn't mean your clothes aren't good. It's just for the events. It's okay, Brenda smiled. I know I'll need to dress differently. Just help me not lose who I am in the process. I promise, Michael said. In fact, I want you to continue being exactly who you are. That's why I chose you. When Brenda left the office this time, her steps were different, firmer, more determined. She was about to embark on the most improbable adventure of her life, and for the first time in years, she felt alive. Across the desk, Michael watched her leave with a strange feeling in his chest. Relief, yes, but also something he couldn't name. For the first time since the diagnosis, he didn't feel completely alone. A week later, Brenda barely recognized her own life. The simple apartment had been replaced by a luxurious suite in the city's 5-star hotel, courtesy of Michael, who insisted she needed an appropriate address for the marriage documents. She sat in front of the bedroom mirror, trying to get used to the reflection. Her hair, once always pulled back in a simple bun, now fell in soft waves over her shoulders, cut and treated at the best salon in the city. Subtle makeup-enhanced features she didn't even know she had. You look beautiful, said the image consultant Michael had hired. The dress arrived. Do you want to try it on? The wedding dress was simple yet elegant. Nothing extravagant. After all, it would be an intimate ceremony just with the necessary witnesses. Even so, when she looked at herself in the mirror, Brenda felt a pang in her heart. She had always imagined that if she ever married, it would be for love. A knock on the door interrupted her. "Brenda, it's me, Michael." "Come in," she said, nervously adjusting the dress. When he entered and saw her, he stopped halfway. For a moment, he was speechless. "You look different," he said finally. "Better or worse?" she asked, trying to keep her tone light. "Different," he repeated, "but your eyes are still the same. They're still you." It was exactly what she needed to hear. Throughout that week of transformation, she had feared losing her essence. "How are you feeling?" Michael asked, sitting in a nearby armchair. He also looked different, wearing a tailored suit, but Brenda noticed he seemed thinner, paler. "Nervous," she admitted. "And you? How are the treatments?" He had started chemotherapy, more to buy time than for hope of a cure. "Difficult, but today is a special day. I don't want to think about it." "Michael," she approached him, "are you sure you want to do this? Marry me when you're going through so much?" "Brenda, you saved my life," he said, his voice emotional. "Not in the medical sense, but you gave me a reason to face each day, someone to think about besides myself." She felt her heart quicken. Their time together over the past week had revealed a side of Michael that no one knew. He was funny, intelligent, and surprisingly kind. He liked to read, knew how to cook. She discovered this when he prepared a simple dinner for her on their first night, and had a secret passion for old movies. "Ready?" he asked, offering his arm. The city hall was small and discreet, just the justice of the peace, 2 witnesses Michael had hired, and the 2 of them. The ceremony was quick, but when it came time for the vows, Michael surprised everyone. "Brenda," he said, holding her hands, "I know this isn't a traditional marriage, but I promise that, for the time we have, I will honor you, respect you, and be grateful every day that you accepted to walk by my side." Tears burned in her eyes. She wasn't prepared for the emotion those words awakened. "Michael," she replied, her voice trembling, "I promise to be your friend, your companion, and to be by your side in all moments. I promise you will never feel alone again." When they exchanged rings, something changed between them. It wasn't love in the romantic sense, but it was something powerful, mutual respect, affection, and a connection neither of them expected. "You may kiss the bride," said the justice of the peace. They looked at each other, both hesitant. It was just part of the act, but when their lips met in a chaste kiss, Brenda felt a tenderness that surprised her. Leaving City Hall, Michael stopped on the sidewalk. "You know what's funny? This was the first decision in years I made with my heart instead of my head." "And do you regret it?" Brenda asked. He looked at her, the afternoon sun illuminating his face. "Not at all. And you?" Brenda thought of her previous life, the lonely days, the constant feeling of invisibility. She thought of the man beside her, who chose her not for her beauty or status, but for who she truly was. "Me neither," she said, surprised to realize it was true. As they walked down the street together, Michael carrying a small briefcase with the marriage documents, Brenda realized that, for the first time in decades, she felt part of something bigger than herself. What she didn't know was that Michael was feeling exactly the same thing. 3 weeks after the wedding, Brenda was learning to navigate a completely new world. Their first public appearance happened at a charity gala, where she met Michael's social circle. The reactions were exactly what they expected: curious glances, discreet whispers, fake smiles. "So you're Daniel's wife," said Tiffany, a socialite known for her sharp tongue. "How interesting. Where did you 2 meet again?" "At work," Brenda replied simply, maintaining the composure Michael had taught her. "How romantic," Tiffany said. her tone making it clear she found nothing romantic about it. "And what was your profession?" Brenda felt all conversations around them discreetly stop. It was the moment she feared. "I was a cleaner," she said, lifting her chin. The silence that followed was deafening. She saw Michael approaching quickly, realizing the situation. "And she still is," he said loud enough for everyone to hear, putting his arm around Brenda's waist. "She cleans up my heart now." People chuckled politely, but Brenda saw the genuine pride in his eyes. At that moment, she realized that Michael wasn't simply protecting his image. He was truly defending her. On the way back home, they talked about the night. "I'm sorry about those people," Michael said. "I know it was awkward." "Actually, it wasn't," Brenda replied, surprising him. "I realized something interesting. They're envious." "Envious?" "Yes, because you look at me in a way none of their husbands look at them, with genuine affection." Michael was quiet, processing her words. It was true. In recent days, he had caught himself observing Brenda with an admiration he couldn't explain. The way she treated the hotel staff with kindness, how she was genuinely interested in the stories he told, how she made tea for him when he returned exhausted from medical treatments. "Brenda," he said when they arrived at the hotel, "can I confess something?" "Of course." "When I proposed this marriage, I thought it would just be a transaction. But you," he hesitated, "you are teaching me things I didn't know I needed to learn." Like what?" "How good it feels to have someone who truly cares. How comforting it is to come home and know I'm not alone. How it is to be seen for who I really am, not for what I possess." Brenda felt her heart quicken. She had developed feelings for Michael that she didn't expect, and hearing those words confirmed that he was undergoing the same transformation. "Can I confess something too?" she said. He nodded. "I'm scared," she admitted, "scared of getting used to all this, to you, to this life, and then—" She couldn't finish the sentence. "Then I'll be gone," he completed softly. "Yes, and scared that you'll think I'm only here for the money when in fact—" She took a deep breath. "When in fact you've become the most important part of all this." Michael stopped walking and turned to face her completely. "Brenda, you know I can't promise a future. The doctors were clear about—" "I know," she interrupted him, "but I can promise the present. I can promise that every day we have will be real, will be true." They looked at each other in silence, both recognizing that something had irrevocably changed between them. What began as a business arrangement was transforming into something much deeper. "Want to watch an old movie with me?" Michael asked, resuming his walk. "I have Casablanca in my room." Brenda smiled. "I love Casablanca." "One more thing we have in common," he said, returning the smile. As they went up to their rooms, neither of them mentioned that, for the first time, they wouldn't separate at the doors. That night they would watch the movie together on the couch in his suite, and Brenda would fall asleep leaning on Michael's shoulder, both finally finding the peace they had sought for so long. Outside, the city continued its frenetic pace, but within those four walls, two lonely hearts had found a home in each other. 2 months after the wedding, Brenda and Michael's routine had settled into a rhythm that surprised them both. She had officially left her cleaning job, but insisted on personally taking care of the apartment Michael had bought so they could have more privacy. Every morning, she prepared breakfast for him before his medical treatments, and every afternoon she was there when he returned, exhausted but always with a smile for her. "How was it today?" she would ask, helping him to the couch. "Better, because I knew you'd be here," he'd reply, always too honest for his own good. That specific afternoon, Michael came home with a different expression. It wasn't the usual exhaustion from treatments. It was something heavier, more definitive. "You need to sit down," he said as soon as he entered. Brenda's stomach clenched. "What happened?" I spoke with the doctor today, the results of the latest tests. He paused, choosing his words carefully. The treatment isn't working as we'd hoped. The world seemed to stop. Brenda knew this moment would come, but she still wasn't prepared. How much time? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. A few weeks, maybe a month. She closed her eyes, feeling warm tears stream down her face. When she opened them, she found Michael looking at her with a tenderness that made her cry even more. "Hey, come here," he said, opening his arms. She moved closer and let him embrace her, feeling safe, even in the face of the devastating news. "It's not fair," she murmured against his chest. "It's not fair that I found you only to lose you so quickly." "Brenda," he said, pulling her back slightly to look into her eyes, "these have been the best months of my life. You gave me something I didn't know existed." "What?" "True love." The words hung in the air between them. It was the first time they had mentioned the word they both felt but were afraid to pronounce. "Michael." "Let me finish," he said softly. "I know we started this as an arrangement, but you became so much more than a wife on paper. You became my best friend, my companion, my soulmate. And I want you to know that if I could choose to live just 1 year the way I've lived these months with you, or 100 years the way I lived before, I would choose this 1 year." Brenda sobbed, unable to contain her emotion. "I love you," she said, finally admitting it to herself and to him. "I love you in a way I didn't even know was possible to love someone." "And I love you," he replied, kissing her forehead. "That's why I need to ask you something, anything. When I'm gone, I want you to live, not just survive, but truly live. Travel, see the world, find someone who deserves the incredible heart you have." "Michael, no." "Promise me," he insisted. "Promise me you'll be happy." Brenda knew it was an impossible request, but seeing the plea in his eyes, she nodded. "I promise." That night, they talked until dawn. Michael spoke of his childhood dreams, of the fear he always had of dying alone, of how she had changed everything. Brenda spoke of years of loneliness, of how she always felt inadequate, of how he had taught her to value herself. "You know what I want to do," Michael said when the sun began to rise. "What?" "I want to renew our vows, but this time, for real, with our true feelings." Brenda smiled through her tears. "When?" "On Saturday, in the garden of the house, just the two of us and the priest I met at the hospital. It will be perfect," she said, and it would be, because regardless of the time they had left, she had learned something precious. Sometimes love arrives when we least expect it, in the most improbable way, and even if it's brief, it's worth more than a lifetime without it. That morning, as Michael slept in her arms, Brenda made a silent promise. She would cherish every second, every smile, every word they still had together. Saturday dawned with a crystal-clear blue sky, as if the universe had conspired to give them the perfect day. Brenda woke early, anxious and emotional. She had chosen a simple white dress, which she bought at a small boutique downtown. Nothing ostentatious, just something that made her feel beautiful. Michael was in the garden when she came downstairs, arranging 2 chairs under the oak tree he had planted years ago. He wore a light suit, and despite the visible weight loss from the recent treatments, he smiled with a peace she hadn't seen in weeks. "Nervous?" he asked when he saw her. "A little," she admitted. "It's strange to be nervous about marrying your own husband." He laughed, a sound she had grown to love. "Today is different. Today we're just Michael and Brenda, 2 people who found each other and fell in love." The priest arrived promptly at 3 in the afternoon. He was an elderly man with a gentle smile, who had met Michael during his most difficult moments at the hospital and had become a confidant. "This is one of the most beautiful weddings I've witnessed," he said, observing the way they looked at each other. You radiate true love. The ceremony was intimate and emotional. This time, they had prepared their own vows. Brenda, Michael began, holding her hands, you came into my life when I thought there was nothing left to fight for. You taught me that a person's worth isn't in what they have, but in who they are. You taught me about kindness, about humility, about unconditional love. I promise to love you with every beat of my heart, for as long as God allows us. She was crying when her turn came. Michael, you showed me that I have worth. You taught me that I deserve to be loved and respected. You gave me the happiest months of my life. I promise to be by your side in joy and sorrow, in sickness and in health, loving you not despite our circumstances, but because of the incredible person you are. When they exchanged rings again, this time, simple bands they had chosen together. The weight of the moment was different. There was no pressure, no rush, just two hearts united by a pure and true love. Now you may kiss as husband and wife, said the priest, for real this time. The kiss was sweet, full of promises and goodbyes, of love and anticipated longing. When they separated, both were crying. After the priest left, they stayed in the garden talking until sunset. Michael had prepared a simple picnic, sandwiches he had made himself, orange juice, and a small cake he had ordered from the neighborhood bakery where Brenda had grown up. How did you know about that bakery? She asked, surprised. I researched everything about you, he admitted. I wanted to understand where so much strength, so much kindness came from. They ate slowly, savoring every moment. Michael told childhood stories he had never shared with anyone. Brenda spoke of her old dreams, of her lifelong wish to travel to Europe. We're going to travel, he said suddenly. Michael, you're not well enough to... Of course I am, he interrupted her. The doctors said a few weeks. We're going to use them well. Paris, Rome, wherever you want to go. Brenda thought about the proposal. Part of her wanted to protect him, keep him safe at home, but there was a light in his eyes she hadn't seen in weeks. Venice, she said finally. I've always wanted to see Venice. Venice it is, he smiled. We leave Monday. That night, lying together in bed for the first time as a real couple, Brenda listened to Michael's breathing calm. She knew every night could be their last, every sunrise a blessing. Brenda, he murmured in the dark. Yes? Thank you for giving me the best months of my life. Thank you for giving me a life worth living, she replied, kissing his hand. They fell asleep in each other's arms, dreaming of blue waters and gondolas, knowing they would create one more precious memory for Brenda to cherish forever. Outside, the stars shone like small promises that true love, even brief, leaves eternal marks on the soul. Venice was even more beautiful than Brenda had imagined. For 5 magical days, she and Michael walked across ancient bridges, sailed through the canals in gondolas, and got lost in the city's narrow streets. Michael had insisted on doing everything, even when fatigue was visible in his eyes. I don't want to waste a single minute, he would say whenever she suggested resting. On their last night in the city, they were on the hotel terrace, contemplating the lagoon under the moonlight. Michael seemed more fragile, but his eyes shone with contentment. Thank you for this, he said, holding her hand. For what? For giving me the opportunity to see the world through your eyes, to see your joy at every church, every square, every sunset. It reminded me how beautiful life can be. Brenda squeezed his hand. Michael, can I tell you a secret? Of course. In the beginning, I thought you were doing me a favor. Now I know the favor was mine. You gave me the life I always dreamed of. But more importantly, you gave me love. True love. They returned to the States the next day. The flight was difficult for Michael, who had to use oxygen for part of the journey. Brenda tried not to show the panic she felt seeing him so debilitated. Back home, they established a new routine. Michael spent mornings working remotely, finalizing details for his company and organizing his inheritance. Afternoons were reserved for the two of them. "I've settled everything with the lawyers," he said one afternoon, 3 weeks after the trip. "The company will be in the hands of a board, I trust, and you—" He paused. "You will inherit the house, some properties, and an amount that will guarantee your comfort for the rest of your life." "I don't want to talk about it," Brenda said, dismissing the subject. "We need to talk," he insisted gently. "I want to make sure you'll be all right." But Brenda wasn't thinking about the money. She was thinking about mornings without his smile, nights without their conversations, the silence that would fill the house. A week later, Michael woke up unable to get out of bed. Brenda called the ambulance, but he asked to stay home. "I want to be here, with you," he murmured. The doctor came and confirmed what they both already knew. It was a matter of hours. "Do you want to call anyone?" Brenda asked, trying to control her tears. "I already have who I need here," he replied, stroking her face. They spent the entire day talking, remembering the special moments they had shared. Michael made sure to tell her how important every day had been, how her every smile had lit up his life. "I'm not afraid," he said as the sun began to set. "How can I be afraid when I've lived the greatest love of my life?" "I'm not afraid either," Brenda lied, "because I know you'll always be with me." Around 10 o'clock that night, Michael began to have difficulty breathing. Brenda held his hand, humming softly a song he had said he liked. "Brenda," he whispered, using his last strength, "I'm here. Promise me you'll be happy?" "I promise." "Promise me you'll find someone to love?" She hesitated, then nodded. "If it's God's will." "And promise me you'll remember me with joy, not with sadness." "I promise," she said, kissing his forehead. Michael smiled one last time. "I love you, my Brenda. Thank you for teaching me what it is to love and be truly loved." "I love you too," she murmured. "Forever." He closed his eyes and a few minutes later passed peacefully, with Brenda's hand in his and a serene smile on his face. Brenda stayed by his side all night, holding his hand, whispering words of love and gratitude. It wasn't a sad ending. It was a complete ending. Michael had left knowing he was loved, and she had learned that it's possible to experience an eternal love in just a few months. When dawn arrived, Brenda kissed his forehead one last time and whispered, "Thank you for choosing me. Thank you for loving me. And thank you for teaching me that I deserve to be loved." Then, with a broken heart but full of gratitude, she began to prepare to honor all the promises she had made to the man who changed her life forever. 6 months later, Brenda stood before the mirror in what was once Michael's bedroom. She wore a simple yet elegant navy blue dress and carried a small suitcase. That day, she would embark for Europe again, this time for a 3-month trip that Michael had secretly planned before he passed, leaving everything organized with a travel agency. The house was silent, but not empty. Every corner held precious memories. On the bookshelf, the books they read together. In the kitchen, his favorite mug, which she still used every morning. In the garden, the oak tree where they renewed their vows. In the first months after his passing, Brenda had gone through all stages of grief. Anger for having so little time together. Denial, expecting to hear him come from the kitchen. Bargaining, promising anything to the heavens to have him back for one more day. But now, finally, she had reached acceptance, and with it, a profound gratitude. The doorbell rang. It was Clara, her neighbor, who had become a dear friend. "Ready for the big adventure?" Clara asked, helping with the suitcase. "Nervous," Brenda admitted. "It's the first time I'm traveling alone." "But you won't be alone," Clara said, touching Brenda's heart. "You'll carry him right here." During the car ride to the airport, Brenda thought about the transformation she had undergone. She was no longer the shy, invisible cleaner from before, nor did she try to be the sophisticated version she thought she needed to become. She was simply herself. Brenda, a woman who had learned her own worth through the eyes of someone who loved her unconditionally. With Michael's inheritance, she had created a foundation to help struggling families, especially women in vulnerable situations. She had also returned to school, fulfilling her old dream of studying education. At 46, she discovered that it was never too late to start over. At the airport, before boarding, she called her sister Lucy. "I still can't believe you're going to see all of Europe," Lucy said, emotional. "Me neither," Brenda laughed. "But Michael always said that life is meant to be lived, not just survived. He'd be proud of you." "I'm sure he is," Brenda replied, looking up at the sky through the window. During the flight to Paris, the first stop on her trip, Brenda opened the notebook where Michael had left letters for her to read at special moments. The letter for the travel day read, "My dearest Brenda, if you are reading this, it means you had the courage to embark on the adventure I planned for us both. I know a part of me will be with you in every place you visit. Don't rush. Savor every moment. Meet new people. And remember, you are not Daniel Thompson's widow. You are the incredible Brenda, a strong, intelligent woman full of love to give to the world. Allow yourself to be happy. It is what I wish most for you." Tears streamed down her face, but they were tears of love, not sadness. 3 months later, when she returned from what she would describe as the most transformative journey of her life, Brenda had changed again. She had met extraordinary people, tasted different foods, seen works of art she only knew from pictures. More importantly, she had learned that she could be happy alone, carrying Michael in her heart without it preventing her from living fully. Upon her return, she found a letter from Michael's lawyers. There was one last surprise. He had bought and renovated her old childhood home in the countryside, transforming it into a small guest house, so that you have a place to return to whenever you want to remember your roots, the attached letter read. That night, sitting in the garden of the house that was once theirs, Brenda looked at the stars and smiled. "Thank you," she whispered to the wind. "Thank you for teaching me that sometimes happy endings come disguised as impossible beginnings. And thank you for showing me that I am capable of love and of being loved." The wind rustled the leaves of the oak tree as if in reply, and Brenda knew that wherever Michael was, he was happy seeing her finally living the full life she always deserved. And she would live for her, for him, and for the eternal love that united them forever.